Tulsi, you came from the other side, and there are so many lies about Donald Trump, not just politically, but who he is as a person. So now that you've gotten to know him personally, what's the greatest misconception that you saw from the media that you know is just simply not true now?
I mean, you've heard these incredible stories, you know, that they like to say, well, Donald Trump is only for Donald Trump. But that was one of the first things that I experienced when I was starting to go and to work with him just over these last few months, that when he would walk into a room where there is business to be done, his very first question was, do you have something to drink? To everyone in the room, his staff included, have they fed you? And if not, it was immediately, all right, we got to get some food in here. This is what's good. Here's what I think you should eat, before actually getting down to doing the work. And I think that's really both what I've experienced in my own version of some of the things that you guys have talked about is really what a caring person he is. The other misconception that the media tells you is that it's you know, very hard to work with him and for him, because he's not going to listen to anybody, and he's only going to do what he wants to do. I've experienced the exact opposite, that when sitting with a group of people, he's asking sincere questions, and he's listening to those answers. And I even found that he was asking questions sometimes to test someone in the room to see if they were just telling him what he wanted to hear, what they thought he wanted to hear, or are they actually going to tell him the truth, even though that answer may be an answer that disagrees with his view or his position. And to me, that can be rare in leaders at any level, who really do want to know, how do you really feel? Tell me why you think the way that you do, so that he can make the best informed decision. Obviously, he's going to make the decision that he feels is best for the country and that feels right for him. But I found him to be incredibly collaborative and encouraging people, always asking, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What if we do this? What if we do that? And I have really grown to respect him tremendously. I kind of came and endorsed him because I believe in his policies, but really getting to know him as a person, I love being around him. I really love working with him, and I really respect his approach and leadership style. I've been around a lot of leaders, both in politics as well as in the military, who have shown me what a bad leader is and how not to be. I've experienced the exact opposite with President Trump. And I think the last thing I'll say on this that is really important is the fact that he has assembled a team of people in this campaign, not only to help him get elected, but to help him govern after we get him elected, from all different backgrounds. Doesn't matter your political party, doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree on every issue. When you have Elon Musk and Bobby Kennedy and myself and Danica Patrick and so many other people coming together, he is demonstrating this unifying leadership that I know that people across the country are so hungry for, who are tired of the extremes and the partisan bickering and it's blue team versus red team. President Trump is saying this is about America. It's about all of us coming together and recognizing we're not going to agree on everything, nor should we. We can have and must have this vibrant debate and discourse of ideas on how we best solve the challenges that we face. The thing that we need to come together around are the fundamental principles of our founding documents, our God-given rights and freedoms enshrined in the Constitution, and stand firmly together as Americans on that ground, and together committed toward this mission of serving the American people and making this country, yes, great again, and as Danica said, greater than it's ever been.
But they are so afraid that they have literally weaponized our justice system against your father-in-law and against the former president of the United States. And Laura, I know you and I, many a days, were in that very dirty New York City courtroom during
very uncomfortable benches, by the way, the worst.
The Alvin Bragg trial in Manhattan this summer. President Trump was confined to a courtroom for 6 weeks. And I think part of it was not just because they truly want to imprison him off of baseless charges and accusations. They wanted to see if they could tamper his spirit. I think that's what it was, psychological games they were trying to play, and little did they know, they picked the wrong guy. I don't know when they're going to stop underestimating him, but going in that courtroom with him every single day and seeing him fight against Alvin Bragg, the entire justice system in New York, the mainstream media that was pushing out fake headlines, and going in there with a smile and more determined than ever to fight and fight for truth. And then he was falsely convicted, and he still continued to fight, and it's amazing to watch. And Tulsi, I know this is one of the many reasons you've become a Republican, is watching the deep state and the weaponized system of our justice, and you've been a victim of it as well. Can you speak to that, please?
You know, there are a lot of people who, unfortunately, will just read the headlines, and it's something you deal with all the time, Caroline, as you deal with the media, is they just throw out these sound bites. Oh, so many felony charges and this, and that, without ever actually looking below the surface to see how, one by one, they're being tossed out, and they are being exposed. I'm not the only one, but there are many people who have also been the targets of political retaliation from the Harris-Biden, accurately called the regime. The very next day after I did an interview warning the American people about how dangerous Kamala Harris would be as commander-in-chief, as I talked about, it's the same thing I said back in 2019. It was true then and it's true now. The very next day, I was placed on a little-known secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. I didn't realize it at the time. What I experienced was when I traveled, and I'm on a different plane almost every day, going to a different city or a different state, and every day that I traveled, I had to go through this very, very in-depth screening at TSA. They would mark my boarding pass with an SSSS on it, and that meant when you go up to show your ID, as you go through TSA, they would shut down an entire lane of the TSA line, which usually takes, you know, a good 10 or 15 minutes, and then push me through. It also happened to my husband, by the way, guilty by association, I guess. And then really thoroughly search every single item on my body and every single item in my carry-on bag. We noticed there were drug dogs sniffing around. They would swipe all of the electronics, turn them on, make sure they were on, swipe them for bomb, explosive residue, and so on and so on and so on. This went on over and over, and every time they're like, you've been randomly selected. No, there is no way. So after about a week and a half of this, there were federal air marshal whistleblowers who came forward and presented evidence showing that I had been placed on this domestic terror watch list, that TSA had what they called an active targeting package focused on me, and that they had assigned at least 3 or 4 federal air marshals to surveil me from the point I got to an airport, through the flight, and then to the point where I actually left the airport. To this day, this has not been addressed by anyone in the administration. I did an interview with Dana Bash shortly after this happened and brought this up. She's like, oh, I've never heard about this. Pretty convenient. She said,
of course you haven't, Dana.
Exactly. She said we should follow up on this. That was like 2 months ago. We sent a message yesterday saying, what happened to the follow-up, CNN? The point is, the propaganda media is working in force to push the Kamala Harris narrative that President Trump and those of us who support him, those of us who are exercising our right to free speech, those who may be peaceful pro-life protesters, anyone who criticizes their government is seen as a traitor, as an opponent, as someone who must experience their retaliation, sending the message that if you go against us, you may be next. And that to me is again, going back to the hypocrisy. These are coming from people who claim to stand for freedom, who claim to stand for democracy. Kamala Harris says she is the defender of democracy, that they protect the rule of law, but we have to recognize that every one of the things that they say they stand for, she says that they're the ones who secure the border. The list goes on and on. In every single one of these instances, it's an intentional distraction tactic, hoping that we don't actually pay attention to the fact that they are doing the very things that they accuse Donald Trump of doing.
Always. And how shameful that the regime, as we call it, went after you, a veteran of this country who honorably served in our military. It's
No.
despicable.
It was interesting. At one of these stops, I asked, I was talking to the TSA supervisor. I had used my military ID that day to go through TSA, so he's holding it in his hand. He's like, this doesn't make sense. He had no idea who I was or involved with politics or nothing. All he saw was the ID card, and he's like, you're in the military. You should not be getting this treatment. I said, I know.
You said, Google me, buddy. Yeah. You'll understand why.
But the interesting thing was that he said that, they get people coming through who get this treatment every now and then, but he noticed how after President Trump was elected, that there were a number of people that he knew personally who never had this screening before, and all of a sudden, when they spoke out for President Trump, they were now part of the random selection. Exactly. It is intimidation, and it is interference and an undermining of our democracy.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.